guys. I'm Jason. First of all, thank you so much for coming in today. Nathan and Quest. First, is there a specific way that you'd like to be referred to? Do Nathan?
Nathan's good.
Nathan's good? How about you, Quest?
Quest is fine.
Okay, Nathan, Quest, easy enough. So, have either one of you been to counseling before?
Individually, yes.
Individually?
Yeah. Oh, I have.
I have to. You?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, how was your experience?
It's always very beneficial, I think.
Good.
Yeah.
How about yourself, Quest?
I have some things I could still work on.
Okay. Are you still seeing counseling outside of with your husband?
I mean, I'm off and on with it.
Okay. So, well, my approach is to be more problem conscious but solution oriented. So I want to spend a lot more of our time thinking about your strengths and the connections that you have. And I know that from my understanding is you're here because you guys have had some arguments and some things, right, that have brought you in. So we'll go into that a little bit. But I really want to focus on some goals. Does that sound okay for you guys?
Yeah.
Quest?
Yes.
Okay. So well, let's start with you, Nathan. Now, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and all that good stuff?
For sure. Well, yeah, I guess I've been, I was single for quite some time before we met. I was very used to living on my own, being very independent. Obviously, Quest came into my life, and things, were, very good. We dated for quite some time, and we made the decision to move in together recently, and yeah, things have been going well. I don't know how much you want to go into the problem stuff right now, but
As much as you want to tell me.
yeah, I mean, I guess we're just, ultimately we're having some problems adjusting to moving in together. That's where we're having problems.
Okay. And Quest, tell me a little bit about your background and how you met Nathan.
Similar to Nathan, I've been single for a while, and we dated, and we used to maintain our separate places until we got married. Had a good honeymoon phase. Yeah, I just feel like we're just having some issues adjusting because we're both these independent people, and it just feels hard existing or having him exist in my space. It's like having main character energy and then it being taken away. So.
Sure. So you both kind of used to live independently, and now that you're living together, this has been kind of a challenging situation, and that's what brought you in. Well, I mean, look, that's totally normal. About half of couples that are married or living together end up going to counseling at some point. So everybody has that, hey, I've got to shift my life to kind of accommodate this other person, right? So that sounds like kind of one of the main issues. If we could look at a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is I'm completely unsatisfied with my relationship, and 10 is this is the best it's ever been. Nathan, where do you think you are right now in this?
I mean, to me, it feels like there's two separate scales, right? The relationship is great, 10 out of 10. But as far as being comfortable in my own space and adjusting to that new process of just being with somebody else and living with them and the day-to-day stuff, that's really challenging. Honestly, that's probably at a 4.
4, okay. Same question to you.
Relationship, I agree with Nathan. We're pretty good on relationship. We do outings, we spend time together. It's just the living instances, I tend to hyper focus. I don't really necessarily like people touching my stuff. I don't even like having to share the bathroom. It's just, there's just different things, and sometimes I feel like maybe I'm the problem, and I feel like I make him uncomfortable because it's just
I can't use the towels.
Can't touch nothing. It's just I literally had a panic attack because I just didn't like the way he used my toilet, and then sometimes he doesn't put the seat down, so if I have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and I get stuck, that's embarrassing. I fall in the toilet, so
Right.
Now I gotta clean up, or now I gotta call him or scream for help because I'm stuck.
And that's gotta be getting under your skin at some point, right?
Yeah,
You
so
said
I just can't. I just don't want him touching things, and I even considered that maybe we should just sleep in separate rooms. He can have his own bathroom, and I don't know. It's just, I think just being too close just kind of makes me ugh.
Just makes you uck a
Yeah.
little bit. So it sounds like we're having the main issue is really adjusting to living with each other. Is that right? Kind of just how do we make this a cohesive living situation? So you said you're at a 4 right now. What's been positive that's kept it at a 4 and not gone to a 3, 2, or 1?
Oh, yeah. I mean, she's a great cook. You know, it's nice to have somebody who, you know, because I can cook too sometimes, but I do. When it's just myself, like I don't cook for myself very often. And so when I come home sometimes and like there's dinner, like I'm always very grateful for that. Like that's always really cool to have somebody do that for me.
Okay. How does it make you feel when you come home and there's a whole meal ready for you?
I mean, I don't expect things to be done for me, and so like when suddenly something is done, I'm very grateful and
Appreciative.
it feels really good.
Okay. And same question for you, Quest. So what's kept the relationship where it's at, and what's been the strong points that haven't brought it down those extra few levels?
Nathan's very thoughtful. He's very in tune with my emotions, and I feel bad because it feels like he's just walking on eggshells half the time. But he's thoughtful. Like if I'm having a bad day, he just like automatically knows when he gets off work. It's not, I'm tired, let me have space. It's more or less like, I just feel like, you know, I got off of work early. I feel like you're having a bad day. Let's just go somewhere. And it's just, he just magically, we get each other in that way.
So it's thoughtful.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I get excited to cook for him, and I get excited to do these different things. It's just the adjustment phase of just, I guess, fully cohabitating. Like, I think it's more of a problem for me, and it's more of a problem that he doesn't get, he doesn't feel at home.
She's right. Like I do feel like I'm walking on eggshells sometimes.
Walking on eggshells. So how long have you guys lived together for?
It's been a couple months now.
Couple of months. Okay, well that's normal, right? I mean, you've lived your whole lives autonomously, and now you have to readjust everything in this personal space to kind of make room for someone else, whether they're a great cook or they're really thoughtful. You still have these other kind of aspects. So if you're at a 4 right now, what would it take to get you to a 10? What would you need to see in the relationship where you felt like this was kind of a much better place?
I mean, not feeling like I have to walk on eggshells, right? Like, I don't want to have to worry that, like, if I put my towel in the wrong spot, that, like, you know, it'll just ruin the mood for the whole day. I don't want to, like, think about anything that I do will upset her significantly. Like, I don't, you know, when I say anything, I don't mean like bad things, but just like day-to-day stuff, living in my own home, like, she has her really particular ways of doing things that isn't necessarily bad, but like, it's just not the way that I do it sometimes.
So if you weren't feeling like you were walking on eggshells, what would you prefer to feel like?
Just comfortable.
Feel comfortable. And how would you know you were comfortable?
I guess it would feel like when I was living alone.
And how did you feel when you were living alone?
I guess, I mean, safe comes to mind, like, I guess it's a negative, but like, yeah, safe and relaxed. I can relax when I'm feeling safe.
Safe.
And right now I don't feel like, I mean, I'm not physically in danger, but just like emotionally unsafe, and I can't relax because of that.
Because you feel like you're on eggshells all the time.
Yeah.
What would you notice in your life if tomorrow you weren't walking on eggshells and you started to feel safe and you felt more relaxed? What would you think would be the first thing that you'd notice?
I'd be happier.
You'd be happier.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, and that would kind of translate more into just like me feeling less anxiety, less stress. I mean, I'm sure that like our relationship would benefit if I like felt not like I was walking on eggshells, or if I did feel more less stressed, you know.
Less stressed. Well, what do you think has gotten you to the point where you've been able to manage the stress so far, and you've been able to kind of get to the point where you've been able to pull through this stress, and you've been able to, you know, have these moments where you still want to, even though you're stressed out on eggshells, you still want to cook for her? What do you think the catalyst has been for those things?
I mean, it's not healthy. It's just more disassociating stuff. Like I'll just turn off the emotions and then just be like, this is my situation. Like, either we're gonna fix it or we won't. But like I said, I do want the relationship to work, but like I don't see myself walking on eggshells for the rest of my life. So
Sure.
either we fix it or like, it's just not gonna work if this is a deal breaker for her.
How committed on a scale of 1 to 10 are you to making this work?
Like a 7.
A 7?
Yeah.
Okay, 7. He's walking on eggshells. How do you feel about that?
It's very loud.
It's loud. A lot of crunching going on.
It's a lot of crunching going on. I don't necessarily want him to feel that way. I care about him. I love him, and I think it's very hard for me because I just feel like the perceptions of others, and I don't want someone to walk into my house and be like, oh, it's like this, and I get it. Like a jacket on a couch probably could be normal, but it's just like if someone comes over and they see our home, they're gonna be like, they're filthy people. They're not gonna associate with us. So it's like I don't necessarily want to be this way too. I just feel like I have to be because of the perception, because of things that we have to uphold together as a couple. Because not only should you be happy, I guess that maybe that's just not enough. But I feel like externally it needs to reflect. And when my space is messy, I feel like that is who I am. Like if things get out of order, then I must be out of order. I'm not able to separate it in the way that Nathan does, and I wish that I was able to separate it and to make it like more cohesive, where like he can just be like, oh, those are my dirty shoes. That's not reflective of who I am. But for me, I'm like, that's reflective of who I am. Like I will spend hours taking apart the vacuum cleaner if I feel like the vacuum cleaner is too dirty, because I'm like, if someone sees a speck of dust, what if that's who I am. I'm dusty. So
why would it be important for you to get to a place where you felt like the house was clean and everything was nice and tidy? How would that make you feel?
it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm together and things are maybe more or less in my control. And I'm not used to, I guess, people being in my space. I'm not used to permanence. I'm not used to, I know that he's permanently here because we got married, and I know we did a lot of reassuring, because I was like, oh, if I was you, I would turn around. But, he didn't, and I value his consideration. I value that he deals with a lot that I have. I just wish that he saw that I'm not as free as, like, he thinks that I am. I'm not as free. I'm bound to this, too. It's just habitual for me, like.
You're not as free. What do you mean by that?
Like, he thinks he's walking on eggshells, but he might be externally walking on eggshells because I'm projecting it onto him, but I feel like internally I'm walking on eggshells.
Right.
Like, because I'm thinking constantly of what, others think, because that's how I was raised. You keep everything nice and neat. You don't really discuss your problems in relationships. So this is a process for the both of us, and I think more or less for me. So if I feel like I'm more or less the problem, and in my head, like, Nathan's perfect, and I just don't. I don't blame him for not wanting to walk on eggshells forever.
I agree.
Agreeing is a great place to start, right? That's, if nothing else, we agreed on at least one thing today. So that's great that you don't want him to walk on eggshells. How does it feel hearing your wife saying that she doesn't want you to walk on eggshells? She doesn't want you to feel this way, and she takes all this responsibility.
I mean, on one hand, I feel guilty. Like, I don't want to just say, like I know you're joking. I mean, I don't know if you're joking or not, but, like, I don't feel like I'm actually perfect, right? But, like, I think that ideally we can, like, figure out a shared solution. I don't want to just say it's all her fault, right? Sorry, what was your question just now?
Just asking you how you felt when you hear your wife take a lot of the responsibility. It sounds like you're really taking the burden on, and she's telling you she doesn't want you to walk on eggshells the way you've been feeling.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess what I said is, like, I don't want to feel like I'm dictating, like, everything and how it should be. Like, right now, like, I admit it does feel like, she's the one that's, like, in charge of, like, what's actually happening, and because if we don't, then, like, that kind of will throw her off. But I don't want the dynamic to be reversed, where I'm dictating everything, and then now she's like walking on eggshells. That doesn't seem like that's a good solution either.
So you want to find like a balance and how to kind of get to that middle point. Does that sound right?
Like if we can
Yeah,
both be
I
happy.
mean, I am jealous of his sense of freedom because maybe my freedom is just, you know, imaginary, but or me feeling imprisoned by my routines. But I admire his sense of freedom because it's like he doesn't think about those different things that I think about, that I obsess about.
Yeah. I mean, those are powerful words, right? You feel imprisoned. He has freedom, right? Those are two opposite ends of the spectrum, right? That makes sense. How would you feel if you felt free and you didn't feel imprisoned? What would you notice would be different in your life?
I think that just I would feel lighter, like the burden. I wouldn't feel as uptight or stressed. I wouldn't focus so much on having like my space to myself, or you know, or feeling like I need to boss him around on how things need to be done. I think I would feel like, you know, that I didn't have to have this sense of control of maintaining everything.
So let's go back.
The bossing around and being in control sounds real important. So you're doing a real good job of deconstructing. I would encourage you to go there a little more with her and him about that
The bossing around.
concept. The bossing and her feeling like she's in control.
Yeah, I was swerving
You're
into that. The
good.
next
Yeah, good,
question.
good.
So, was there a time in the relationship where you felt like you didn't feel like you needed to kind of be this bossy and in control person, and you were a little more calm and relaxed?
When we didn't live together, because I didn't have to worry about like, you know, I think maybe I want to be perfect for him, and the way I view myself is just how my environment is around me physically, like the things I can see. So I think when, you know, we had our own places, like, you know, Nathan knows that even when I went to his place, he wasn't like the cleanest person, but he wasn't like dirty either, but it felt relaxed, you know. I knew that he had his own way of doing things, and kind of felt nice to just like, you know, this was his way and not my way. And so it was just like, it kind of took my brain off of that, because now that we live together, it's like, it's my job to kind of maintain the household. And it doesn't really feel like our way. And then I know it feels like my way, but it's really confusing.
Well, before you guys decided to move in together, you said you felt a little different, and obviously you're walking on eggshells now, and seems to be the core issue. What were those conversations like that decided this person is so amazing, I want to move in with this person? Can you tell me a little bit about that, and what it is about your partner that really attracted you to them and made you decide, I want to move in with this person?
I mean, on one hand, I appreciate the structure and the order that she has in her life. It is a contrast to me. I feel like historically, like there has been less structure that I've had, and so in that way we kind of go well together, right? We, you know, it's like two sides of a coin. But yeah, I mean, and so that is an attractive thing. But I wanted, like, I like to have somebody who can provide a little bit more of that than I can do on my own. And beyond that, you know, of course, just all the positive aspects of our relationship. You know, I feel like we're a good team when we do work together. Like, you know, we can get a lot done. Like, I know that we have similar goals with like future family stuff, and you know, that's future stuff.
And how about you? What was your impetus in terms of moving in with Nate? Why did you go, this is going to be the roommate for me?
I just like his sense of adventure. I'm not as adventurous, but when I'm around him, I can do anything. Like,
Okay.
we traveled, you know, I went scuba diving for the first time. Like, he brings me out of my shell, and I like the version that I am when I am around him. I don't like the version of the home life, but when we're outside the home, it's like we're those people, and that's kind of what keeps us together. And I want to find balance on like a solution for us, because we both want it to work. We both bring out the best in each other. At least, like, I like to think so.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing is that you both really value each other in so many other aspects of your life. You mentioned it brings you out of your shell, and you really appreciate her. You love to cook, and you don't expect it. She cooks. There seems like there's a lot of positive factors in this relationship that made you guys decide to move in. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, you're married, so that's probably a good indicator, right, that you decided you wanted to spend your life with this person. So these problems that started to arise in terms of you feeling like you're walking on eggshells and you're feeling kind of like you had to be in control and the boss of the house, do you remember a time, can you tell me about a time that these have happened in the past that you were able to walk and talk yourselves through these and kind of de-escalate the argument?
Between us.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Like, how are you able to resolve one of these times that has happened constructively? Has there been a time that you guys have had these little arguments that were able to you were able to fix on your own?
Not really. I mean, I think he just kind of gives in.
Yeah, I'm pretty chill about most stuff. That's true.
Yeah.
I think in general, like, because I'm pretty flexible. Like, I'm just, as long as I'm happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I can tolerate a lot of things, like being outside of what I'm used to. But then, like, eventually it gets to a point where I'm like, hold on, like, I feel nervous all the time. Once it passes that threshold, then it's more difficult, let's say.
And now, the eggshells threshold, are these things that you've communicated in the past to Quest?
Well, I mean, before we came, I think that we had an argument about like at first, for the first couple weeks of like living together, I noticed that there were things that you were very particular about, and I kind of was just like, I wonder if this is a thing that I can tolerate and just deal with, and that's what I tried to do. I just tried to see if I could just be like, it's fine, because it's my go-to usually. But after like the 7th or 8th time where she yells at me for like, where I put my towel, it gets to me eventually, and so I'll like, it just makes me like more upset at that point.
It's like death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
It just feels like all the little things start to add up.
Uh-huh.
How about for you, Quest?
He just like, oh, well, can you chill more when we're outside the house? Yeah, I'm chill because we're not in the house. But like I said, it just makes me feel better. It's comfort. So, but I want it to be like how it was when, he had his own place and he was able to have his like things around. But it's just like, how do we navigate that? How do we separate that,
Mm-hmm.
Technically when you're married, you're supposed to like share, and I don't really feel like sharing like on a certain level.
Okay. So what specific changes would you each like to see in the relationship?
I mean, really, the only is if I don't feel like I'm being attacked or like, told that I'm doing things wrong, I'm good. Like, she can have her particular way, and I can kind of navigate around that. That's fine. But the way that she like communicates that and like, inevitably like, when she says that I we'll just stick with the towel. Like, I put the towel in the wrong spot. First time it's fine. Second time it's fine. Like, and I put it away in the right spot. But I'm probably going to make these mistakes according to like what her, ideal is a lot, because it's like I just don't think about it. And but if she were to have more patience and like the way that she communicated her like dissatisfaction makes me uncomfortable. I think ultimately that's the problem.
Can you turn to Quest and just tell her what you just told me about how that makes you feel and what you'd prefer her to do instead?
Yeah. So when you communicate the fact that you're unhappy about like the towel or the pots or like whatever it is, you do it in a way that like makes me feel attacked and not okay, and that scares me, and that makes me feel nervous. That affects things later on.
What would you prefer that she do?
I would prefer that you have a little bit more patience. When you do communicate it, I mean, just doing it with less aggression, I think, would make things easier.
Quest, how do you feel about that?
I don't feel good. But I understand where Nathan's coming from. So it's like, it's kind of like I know these things, and I agree with communication skills. It wasn't something I was, necessarily taught. So I do agree with that on that aspect.
Well, I'm just from the 15, 20 minutes that I'm watching you guys, it seems like you guys do have some good communication to build on. You have a lot of positive history that you decided, hey, I met this person, they're awesome, I want to live with them, we can move in together. And you've navigated the challenges up in the last couple of months, so do have some good foundations that you guys are able to build on. Quest, what are some things that you think are important to like changes that you would like to see directly in the relationship from Nathan?
I think just maybe more understanding that this isn't, I don't choose to be this way. This is legit who I am, and I'm open to interpretation and trying to learn and become more flexible like you. But I think what you don't understand is that I am very like envious and jealous of like just your ability to not care, because it just would be nice if you just extended like that grace and just instead of saying, oh, you're just overreacting, just like, I understand where you're coming from, but that it's okay. It would just be nice to have reassurance that if I'm like having a meltdown because things are not organized, because maybe there are other things going on with me that day. Maybe I had a rough day at work, and the way I cope is just like I clean and have stuff in order, and it'd just be nice if you had that empathy that there might be more to what's going on.
Nathan, I noticed you smiled when she said not care.
I mean, yeah, when I think it's because I do care, but I'm not trying to like instigate an argument, but like I do care a lot about her, and I do want.
Tell her.
I do care a lot about you, and I do want you to feel like I am there for you. It's just the way that it goes back to the communication of like when like it's just if I make a mistake, suddenly it's like it goes from 0 to 60 of like anger, right? There's no in between.
And I need to work on maybe taking time and space from going 0 to 100 on you, because you don't deserve that.
Yeah. It's important we just kind of slow things down a little bit sometimes, right? I mean, does that make sense? Sometimes we just get in this action-reaction mode, and just kind of taking that beat and that pause is important. If you guys were to go home tonight after this session, you go to bed, and all of a sudden you wake up in the morning, boom, everything's perfect. God, I wish that could be the case, right? But if everything is perfect for you and everything was perfect for you, what's the first thing you'd notice, Nathan, that would be different?
I mean, I don't know functionally like how, like what life would look like, but internally, emotionally, I would wake up and just feel like no pressure, no waking up and instantly wondering like, I wonder what today is going to be like. Because like there's days where I wake up and I'm just like, is it a good day or is it a bad day? I don't know. But not having that thought of like anxiety over like whether it's going to be a good day or a bad day.
So you'd wake up, you'd feel comfortable, you'd feel in your own skin, you wouldn't have anxiety, you'd feel confident about the day. Is that a good assessment?
Yeah.
Okay. And Quest, if all the problems that brought you here today were suddenly magically gone, they're just gone, and I'm out of a job, you guys wake up in the morning, what's different? What's the first thing you notice?
Nathan using the hand towels.
Using the hand towels?
He's able to lay his jacket on the couch. Like the house is still organized, but it doesn't have to be like everything perfect. And he's able to like it looks like he stays there.
Okay. So you want to be able to wake up in the morning, feel comfortable, feel confident, not have to walk on eggshells, and you want to know that you have a partner that's helping keep the house clean, so you don't have to feel like you're bossy and all this is on you, and you guys are able to work together. So let's talk about what are some small steps that we can start to build into this so that we can start moving in that direction.
I mean, for me, it's about the communication. If she could not go from 0 to 60 or 0 to 100, like that would be my ideal, right? Just like if she can warn me before she gets angry, I think that would be huge. Because then I'm happy to like, say, hey, like I'm feeling upset about like the towel, and I'll be like, because it's a towel, like it's just a towel. So like you tell me, and I'll be like, oh, let me fix the towel. Like okay, done. That'd be cool.
It's communication. Quest, what are some steps that we could start taking so that you would feel like Nathan was being more proactive with helping around the house?
I would just feel just that he'd rather just do it versus asking me, because then that puts me in the position where I feel like I have to like control the situation. When you had your own place, like I said, I don't mind cleaning and taking care of the home, but even when you had your own place, you maintained, and I feel like now it just like feels like it's just kind of all on me unintentionally, because you assume that this is how I want it, but I kind of sometimes I want you to kind of like take over so I can like breathe, because it's a lot, if you're telling me, I enjoy doing these things for you, enjoy cooking dinner, but imagine, cleaning a kitchen, cooking a kitchen, and then, like if there's something else that's on the, on the floor or something, and you walk past it, but you make it seem like it's no big deal. It'd just be easier if you just like pick it up versus waiting on me to say, hey, pick it up. It's a lot of energy to constantly direct someone and tell them what to do, especially, if we talked about having a family or having pets in the future, then I'm going to have to direct that pet or direct that child, and then now I got to direct you, and I don't want to feel like I'm directing like a show, a movie, a household, just constantly telling people what to do, and they shouldn't innately know what to do initially. And I think that would like help, because then that way it's like it feels more like our space, and I don't have to feel like, oh, this is just all on me, and if this is not in order, if he's not thinking about this, and I have family that wants to just come over unexpectedly, because my parents are big on popping up, so and they see all these things or things on the floor, because if I don't do it, then no one else does.
So if you were to wake up tomorrow and suddenly Nathan was using the hand towels, putting stuff away, he walks by socks, picks them up, throws them in the hamper and everything else, where do you think that would move that scale from 4? Where would that move that up to if you saw all those things happening?
I think the scale would be like 1 being the best, or like 10 being the best.
1 being I don't want to be in this relationship and it's not happening.
I think it would move it up to about where we were at before, about a good 9. It's
Good
just
9. It's a great jump.
it just takes the pressure off of me, because then it'll feel more like our space, just like when I would go to his house and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like his space and the way that he wanted to do things, so I respected that. And when he came to my house, he respected that, but now this is our house, so we have to find the middle ground. And I think if he just does those little things, then yeah, I don't think it'll be as big of a deal. Like, I know things won't be organized in the way that I would do them, but it'll be a way that where we can take it from I, him to our.
That's great. I, him to our. If you wake up tomorrow and suddenly you don't feel like you're on eggshells, everything's great, you feel confident, you're comfortable, this feels back like your home, you don't feel like you're being micromanaged, where does that move that 4 for you?
Easy, 10.
10.
Like that's what I want.
10. That's great. Well, so we have like the outline and the plan. So it sounds like the big disconnect, and let me know if I'm wrong, is it's that you have certain expectations that you want out of Nate, and it seems like Nate's kind of walking on eggshells. Have you been able to clearly communicate, or Nate, do you feel like she's clearly communicated all of these expectations, or are these some new things that you're hearing?
I mean, the broad picture is I understand. Yeah.
The broad pictures, you understand. Have we ever thought about maybe, I'm wondering, making it a less broad picture and a more specific, actionable step picture? Have you thought about perhaps putting together a list together? Is that something you'd be open to doing in terms of expectations and being able to figure out like almost a chore chart? So these are my responsibilities and these are your responsibilities. Is that something that you guys think would be beneficial?
I think as long as we're doing it together and it's not just, one of us doing it more than the other. If we sit down and we do it together, or maybe work through it through therapy, because that might be just a easier or better option if we work through it in a session, just to kind of have a neutral party, kind of just make sure that we are, being fair to each other.
And Nathan, how about you? How do you feel about working together to find a cohesive solution on that?
I mean, I feel like you know, it is a good, it's a good, like, it's a good fix. It's a good Band-Aid. I feel like if it solves like her problem of like going from 0 to 100, that's good. But it does feel like a Band-Aid on a bigger issue.
Oh, it's the bigger issue is.
Would be the fact that she goes from 0 to 100.
Yeah, I mean, and it sounds like you're going 0 to 100 because of all these little things are like adding up. Is that accurate?
Yes, and I necessarily don't feel like I would not go 0 to 100 if it didn't feel like it was all on me, or I didn't feel like it was free range up to whatever I wanted. If you were just assertive in your own way and stated like what you wanted, because then I have to like overthink and think like what would Nathan want versus asking you like, hey, what do you want, and you're just like, yeah, and that kind of doesn't help.
Yeah, you had mentioned before that sometimes you kind of just block things out a little bit, right? Well, in my experience, patience is like a cup of coffee in the morning, right? And every time you have to pick up a pair of socks, you dump a little out. You have to remind someone to do something, you dump a little out. And if you're not really in tune or paying attention to that, it's easy to look back and like, you jump from the whole cup of coffee to empty cup of coffee. But really, the disconnect is that she's been like, I'm trying to show you, I'm dumping a little out here and there, right? So what do you think is one little step that we could do to improve so that next week we come back here and we're just 1% better? What's one thing that you think we could work on?
I mean, I think that, for her, I think it's obvious to me, like, I understand what she's saying, right? Like, if I were to be more organized, more clean, more, particular about, like, what she wants things to look like, then, like, things would be better, right? And, I mean, if I was looking for a practical solution, then I would say, like, okay, like, I can solve that by being cleaner, right?
What does being cleaner mean, though, to you?
I mean, there's a lot of like particular things. Like I could, make sure very explicitly that I put the towel exactly on the rack.
Okay.
How it was.
I don't think he's hearing me correctly. If he were just to participate and just, I'm really trying to step out of just, doing things a particular way. I want you to initiate and just help out. That's all. Like, that's initially what I'm saying. I'm not saying you have to be perfect. I'm not saying, I strive for you to be perfect. I'm not perfect. I mean, in my ideal, yeah, you're my ideal version of perfect because I married you. But I don't expect you to be perfect, and I don't feel like you're hearing what I just communicated with you. I expect you just to clean and do the basic stuff and to lessen my burden so that way I don't feel like so rigid about it. I want to be able to relax and be the same adventurous person that I am outside the house that I am in the house.
So to take more initiative about making sure that the household is in order.
Taking more initiative, does that sound more in line with what you're looking for?
Yes, like being an active participant, not a passive bystander.
Active participant. And active participant would mean you'd see him doing what?
Just, like I said, if you see a sock on the floor, pick it up. If you see different things, pick it up. Because the more I see it, the more overwhelmed I'm going to get, the more crazier I'm going to get, the more it's going to be like you just jumped out of nowhere. When I'm thinking about a sock since 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm looking at the same sock at 2 p.m.
One of the things that I've found beneficial is I try to catch my kids doing things right. Because it's easy when we come into therapy, we talk about all the problems that we have. But do you think it'd be possible then that because on a more macro level, you don't want to walk on eggshells, you want to feel happy, and you want to feel like you have a partner who cares more. When he does do these things, picks up after himself, he picks the towel up, he uses the hand towel, he's being more engaging. Do you feel like it's something that you'd be able to do, is give him some positive feedback to reaffirm how you're feeling in these moments?
I believe I can do that as long as he gives me like positive feedback on, hey, like I noticed that, you have like relaxed or, relaxed back more.
Do you feel you would relax back more if she did that to you and said, hey, I really appreciate you picking that up, and I feel that's awesome that you did that, thank you?
Probably, yeah. I think I'm so used to getting negative feedback that like that would be surprising. So it'd be good in a good way. It'd be surprising in a good way.
Okay. Your insurance guys, I'm gonna need.
Good job.
I thought this was pro bono.
So y'all just stay where you're at for a
Okay.
minute, and we're gonna start and go around the room and just a little bit of feedback. I know you got a page full of stuff for each of you, but just what's one or two real important feedback as a reflecting team that you want to share with Jason?
You want to
Yes.
let mine go?
Yeah.
I had for you demonstrating exception, a few things that you did well was, with keeping you at a 3 instead of going backward. So what's working to find out that, and specifically when it was, what's been working for Nathan, keeping him wanting to cook for her and asking about a time he didn't feel like XYZ. I thought you did that really well. And I was curious if you had explored his comment about Quest being angry, going from 0 to 60, like if she felt the same way, because then, you could focus on maybe some solutions around that for her, what she would see as a possible solution to, going from 0 to 60. Because he had started saying, it's communication, but when really, maybe it was something else for her going from 0 to 60.
Good.
Good job. I
Thanks, Trace.
really appreciate your demeanor and the way you keep everything kind of organized and just you keep things from spiraling out. I've always seen that and I appreciate that. You hit so many good solution-focused things. I think one thing is when you sort of pull out these exceptions, you could have then turned them into things like goals or things they could work on, like specific.
And he did do that some later, but
Yes,
yeah, you
yeah.
could have done that, yeah.
For me, what came up a few things, and I don't know how you pull this into solution focus, but for like, there were some diversity things that came up for me. Like I know Quest is saying, well, the way that I was raised, and keeping a clean house means a lot to me. Like I recently read, especially in like African American. Tell me if I have this wrong, but like if people could come in and judge my home, then I feel less secure. So this thing I can control is my home, and I look. She said it matters how people perceive me. So if I'm off.
No, you're probably, I would say, well, we're not all a monolith, but I would say on a
Right.
cultural level,
Yeah.
I would say yes, because that's the reason why a lot of people aren't allowing me to, because they want their home to be perfect, and so I would say, yeah. I would say on a cultural level, generally speaking, because not all a monolith, but generally speaking, that is the ideal perception.
Yeah, so I feel like there were some things she shared that may be tied, that I don't know how you do it within a solution,
Yeah.
but could be addressed. Also, in terms of gender roles, she feels like the home is her domain and she's responsible for it, and she doesn't want to, especially if they move forward and have family, or like this will just be on me. So just maybe like addressing a few of those things could have like also brought her at ease and been able to move more forward.
And all those things you can do in future sessions too, because these things you notice, you may not have, because you went a good length of a full session with the recording, and you're not gonna get everything. But if you make notes, you can come
Yeah,
back
so that
and
was-
say, yeah, I would pull that in a little bit, but you're right about that could be a cultural thing. And she
even
said,
I feel not as free.
yeah, she
I said
said
that,
that.
I brought that up about the
Couple
free in
and-
prison
Mhm.
Yeah.
ju-
She doesn't feel
juxtaposition.
free.
Yeah.
She
Yeah,
sees
and then
him
also
being
to add
free.
to that, just like random reference, which I think, I'm not trying to call out your age, but historically speaking, like, what my mom would talk about, like, if you had welfare or assistance, they will always do these random pop-ups, and you weren't allowed to have, like, certain things. So my mom is, like,
Yeah.
very clean.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
if she was assumed to have a TV, she could, like, lose her like her mom and them could lose their assistance, or if there was a man in the home.
Oh, yeah.
So like different little things that kind of attacked like at least African American families. I'm not sure how the perspective is for other people, but there was like this movie that she had me watch. It was made in the 70s, and I was like, why are they hiding the man in the closet? Like, why are they doing all these different things? And like, you have a social worker, you have someone coming in criticizing you, or like removal of your kids because, you know, maybe there was like a napkin or there was like dirty dishes in the sink, and they don't think that you're clean enough to, you know. And some of those nuances still kind of happen today. Like, my friend almost lost custody of her kids because her house wasn't deemed clean enough. It wasn't filthy. It wasn't like roaches or anything else like that, but because she had dishes in the sink, because she had laundry like on the floor, like things that you might see normal in a normal household is not, you know, it's not the same perception for us. So that's just kind of like adding like historical context in the role of like what the government and welfare and all those different programs had effects on families, and they're constantly facing those different things today. They don't realize that they're doing that, but
Yeah.
generationally speaking.
Yeah, generationally, and we know from research that generationally, things get passed down without them even being understood or overtly present, you
Mhm.
know. But those experiences get passed down like that. And being solution focused, it kind of puts a dilemma, I think, Jason, on you, because again, you're not so interested in the history.
Yeah.
And yet, that what you were just talking about is absolutely important culturally to you and historically to you. So you kind of have to figure out how are you going to make that about. You might tie it into, well, this helps you understand the present. What were you going to say?
I was just gonna point to that, which theory would more go into her history, because that stuck out to me too. I guess being African American, I wanted him to go more into why she felt
Yeah,
the need
yeah,
to be.
yeah.
Well, you did great, Jason. I just
Thank you.
thought, okay, dig more into that, because her upbringing and the way she feels is important.
I
to the
think that,
situation.
just from my perspective, so the reason that I really gravitated towards solution-based fast therapy, and I feel personally super biased that it's the only systemic practice that focuses on all this shit sucked, but let's think about what we can get better. What are our resources and things? Because we can't change the past. I think it's important to understand the past, and that we like those things would come up in later sessions. Like I think that, but I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time in this initial session digging into like let's like bring up all the negative. Let's try to let's start to set the sails towards the positive things, because it's really easy to get sucked into like the past and just start to become like the trauma and these things. But I do know there are some limitations with solution-focused therapy. Feel like, you know, that's why I'm getting certified in EMDR therapy and stuff, because I know for like trauma, it's not the best. But one of the things, and this goes back to one of the other questions, is solution-focused does tend to pigeonhole you a little bit into like forward-looking and being more positive and looking at resources and times that things were better, what was different, how do we get back to that thing. But
I do
I think
think
you
you
did a
can
great
bring.
job.
Yeah, you did a great job with it. But I think that you can bring some of that history in by, well, tell me why in the present this is so important. And you can get what she just said there and what, you know, what Chantel's talking about, and kind of put all that in there and not dwell on it. If you were narrative, that's definitely dominant discourse, right?
Yeah.
So for narrative, that's huge. You're going to spend a lot of time identifying it and stuff. Solution focus, not so much.
Yeah, and I definitely see that you were like on the solution
Yeah.
focus,
That's what I was
which you
asking
know
yesterday, like,
it's good to
stay
have
with
like the
writing
review
prisons.
team, and then like, you know,
Yeah.
as you develop your skills, you'll be able to incorporate certain things.
So we need to move on
I
because
was
of the
gonna say,
recording.
well, I think you hit all of the main notes for each.
Yeah.
So I thought that was good, and I
Thank
agree
you.
with what you're saying, like solution focus, you know, trying to stay this way. And
Yeah, that's what I asked yesterday,
the
because it
first
feels
session
like it should
too.
flow a little bit, but I was trying to stay really in the
Right.
parameters
Yeah.
of just
Yeah.
solution
Yeah.
focus.
You did it. You demonstrated that.
So it definitely, I could tell you were solution focused.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see a longer build-up to the miracle question.
Yeah.
That felt very rushed, like suddenly they were having to experience a different reality, or I imagine a different reality. I would have liked to see just a longer sort of lead into that so they could put themselves into that reality, that ultimate reality. I liked how you kept things moving, the pace of it felt good. However, there were times when I felt like you missed a few things. I was a little concerned for Quest a couple of times because she felt there was an element of blame coming into it. She mentioned
From
twice,
Nathan.
she said, I feel like this is there's something wrong with me. And I wanted to stop there and ask her, like, what are we talking about? Like, there's nothing wrong with you, I wanted to just make sure that Quest knew that she was okay. And, so that there were she said that twice. And then I'm wondering how solution focused handles blame, because in the enactment, there were other issues, there were other times in which it almost seemed like they were blaming each other for this. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm curious how they deal with
I
that.
addressed that in my feedback.
Okay.
Because I think, you've got to be careful to word it differently, how that's expressed. And basically, the way you do that is instead of Nathan saying, this is what would be different about Quest, it would be, Nathan, tell me what bothers you and why it bothers you. And seeing if Quest can understand that. I had this couple in therapy. This is actually, I had this exactly. And they were young, they were great, very bright. Both were attorneys, you can imagine. Both of them being attorneys and having that attorney training and perspective. And the issue, and it was this exact thing, they actually bought an old house downtown so they could remodel it, make a bunch of money, and buy the new house that they really wanted to purchase before they had their child. And they did that. And the guy, the husband, was wonderful at repairs and fixing things and rehabbing and all of that. But he would leave his tools and maybe a little sawdust, and she would just go bananas, And it was because she was so perfectionistic about herself and the way she grew up in her family of, there's dust there. 95% of the room can be clean, but there's dust there. Oh my gosh, I'm a terrible person, I'm a terrible wife and all that. And that's the reason she was so rough on him. And he had a hard time with that, of course. So, you do that by getting them to talk more about them, what bothers them, and not get into the blaming of each other. It's a real tricky situation there.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. One of the things that's solution focused is we want to find the hero in them and also not conflict with their own
Right.
self-identity. So it becomes, I don't want to say, no, you're not a horrible person. Hey, why do you feel like you're, things like that. But
Right.
yeah, and I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I said that I.
You got yours,
Yeah.
okay. Fee?
Jason, you're very engaging. I feel like
Yeah.
if I was your client, I would feel heard, which is very important. So good job on that. I would have liked for the phrases that they brought up frequently to be defined. Walking on eggshells, 0 to 100. What do these things look like? Because I feel like without those definitions, it almost felt like everyone accepted that Quest was to blame. Because you hear 0 to 100, what does that even mean? What does that look like? But when we just accept that term for what it is, and they're all agreeing, yeah, she goes 0 to 100, then you too, I feel subconsciously will agree, okay, she's going 0 to 100, let's find a solution for that. Versus, what do those words mean? Maybe she's not even going 0 to 100. Maybe they're looking at things differently. Maybe, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I thought I did ask, like, what does walking on eggshells look like in some of those
I think you did, that
exploratory
particular
questions.
thing.
But yeah, I understand
Yeah.
with
But there were
the big
others
miss was the
that
100,
could-
and do you feel that way, and what do you think? Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I didn't even catch that, but.
Also,
Yeah.
one
No.
thing, I don't know if I
No,
missed
please.
it as well, the scaling question, did you just ask him or did you ask both?
I asked both of them.
Did
Oh,
ask
okay.
both,
4
yeah.
questions each,
Yeah,
scaling. And in reverse too.
The 1 to 10 was the 4. Did both of them say 4?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for like happiness factor, and then
Yeah.
what kept you there, what would you need to go higher, and then where would it be
Yeah.
if we had these
Yeah.
things?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and don't try to say from 4 to 10 as far as change, because you're not wanting 4 to 10, you're wanting 4 towards 10. And you went back to that of a small change
Yeah,
towards the
I
end
noticed that too.
real well, but don't ever say what would move you from 4 to 10.
I was hoping he was gonna say 9 too, because I was gonna have a whole speech about 10 and perfect isn't.
Right, right.
I was like, damn it, you screwed up my pre-planned dialogue.
Yeah, there you go, there you go. Tiffany?
So some impactful responses. I like that you both really value each other and that you both have a lot of positive
Mhm.
factors. And then another one was you have some good foundations to build on.
Mhm.
It just
Mhm.
it
Those
just
were
gave you
real
hope,
strong.
you know? It was giving them hope.
Very powerful.
And another one is it's important to slow things down and then I missed the end, but you said we can get into like action reaction mode really
Mhm.
easily. And that's what I noticed too is like especially with this conversation, they were like in a tornado, just keep on going and going and going with it. So I like that you kept trying to get them out. But yeah, that's about it.
That's good. Tiff.
Thank you.
Yeah, Emily,
Um,
what hasn't already been
She was
said?
doing
I know,
that.
that's what I'm looking like.
She's like,
Okay,
I
that's
painted
been
this
resolved.
I painted this interpretive picture of what the session looked like.
Yeah, I did have some, like, I like how you clarified what freedom was for her. I was curious to, Queston mentioned that, you know, something about, oh, you know, like, I like having my space, like, when I go to his house, like, it wasn't, like, very clean, but it wasn't very messy, but, like, I was fine with that.
It didn't
And then
bother
she's
her,
like, but,
yeah.
like, that's his way,
Exactly.
so I wanna know what their way looked
Right.
like.
That's, yeah, no, I get that, and that's why I wanted to find out beforehand, like,
Yeah.
what's been different, and like, what's her definition of, you know, you're okay with it now, what's different, and that's where that communication, I felt like expectation setting, a lot of times, like,
Yeah.
people, I find that people wanna be psychic, and like, oh, you should know that I
Exactly.
am like
Mhm.
this because of this. But
Yeah,
I
you
fo-
did a good job towards the end of building towards that, I think, of their solution and what their idea would look like. And you did validate nicely when you said, yeah, all couples have those issues.
Mhm.
When they first moved in, that was a very nice validation that you said. Anything else?
I did like your example of the cup of coffee. I thought that was interesting. I didn't understand it. Well, the way
Smart.
I took it, is that he's seeing it, not like when she said, oh, like, hey, can you pick up that sock? That was just a little thing, but he's like, oh, like, no, it's just sock, I'll get it later, or something
Right.
to me. But he's like, well, she always blows up and always tells me what to do, but it's like, she could be saying like one thing a day, and he thinks it's just everything.
Mhm.
That's how I took it.
Yeah,
So,
it's like patience, right? Like you wake up in the morning with like 100% patience, and your kids take 2%, this takes 3%. But if you're not really fully engaged in like what's going on, he said he kind of disconnects.
Mhm.
Then instead of seeing everything, that's like, oh, I'm noticing these things. It's kind of like I'm looking over here while all these little things are eroding. You go back, and you're like, oh, you went 0 to 100. So there's can be that like disconnect of like not being really engaged in terms of like being in tune. There's like a disconnect.
yeah, cause you had stated like, oh, like, you said that you kind of just block everything out. So
Right.
I think,
She's over there dumping out coffee, and he
Yeah.
looks back, and she's like, empty cup, and then
yeah.
he's
It
like,
felt like Nathan really got it in that moment a little bit more too. Like,
Mhm. Who's your
oh,
example?
I have missed some of these cues.
Mhm.
I've heard death by 1,000 cuts. But
Mhm.
we both experienced a death by
Yeah.
1,000
Yeah.
Mhm.
cuts.
Yeah.
To piggyback off of what you said, I think the coffee thing was a great usage.
thank you.
I also liked how you didn't just do like the scaling and then just went away from it. You kept referring back to it throughout the whole session, and
Yeah.
how you like de-escalated it and like, okay, now let's think about like the future and where do you see it then, and what would you rate that then? And then at the end, I like how you gave it like a personal aspect and like how you used this own therapy with your family and your kids, and the outcome of like, well, you know, like let's think about it like let's give them the positive thing rather than focusing on the negative. So maybe they would be like more open to it. Now that you're like personally their therapist, they're like, oh, it worked for him, maybe it'll work for us.
Yeah, I think it's important to be, catch people doing things right, not always catch them doing things wrong.
Yeah, this was a great start, and I appreciate you being courageous and being willing to go first. It was a great start, and y'all were great clients and kept going and developing, and all that I think was perfect for where we needed to start at. I wrote a bunch of stuff you'll see on the grading.
Great.
No, that's right, hopefully that's but I did want to share one or two things from my perspective and not yours. So, one of my interns in North Carolina, and she was in Charlotte, she taught me this, and she was super solution focused. And she said, don't draw your scales like that. Draw them this direction. You see how that
Sure.
feels different?
Mhm.
Because it gives you the sense of going up. And then when you do it, you know, so if the four might have been there, so you mark it there. And if you'll put that, like Chris didn't use a whiteboard, my solution focus from my last cohort when we first started, because he was afraid to get up out of his chair. And he didn't have a whiteboard or a flip pad or something. And I kept encouraging him to do that. And it really enhanced his solution focused therapy when he did. Because then you've got something you get them to keep looking at. Okay, so 4, this is a 10. So we're gonna move towards that in a small step and stuff. And so to move from here to here would mean what? And so you get that visual, you see
Sure.
how you get that visual interaction there by using that to support your solution focused therapy.
It's another Buddhist quote. Tell me and I'll forget, show me and I'll understand, involve me and I'll, or no, show me and I'll remember, involve me and I'll understand.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
getting up and doing some.
Yeah, don't be afraid to get out of your chairs, you know, and do something. You're not wed to that one chair kind of thing. But overall, yeah, there were times I wanted you to slow down a little bit, but that's not surprising because in the track 2, that's almost always an issue of me wanting people slow down a bit, because you're trying to boom, 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 boom with it, you know. And I wanted you to use a little more client language than you did. You did use it quite a bit, but I wanted you to use it a little bit more and to pause, like Fee was saying at times, and just really emphasize, that sounds real important to you, you know, and maybe what does that mean, maybe not, but just that emphasis on that client language sounds real important to me, I think can be very powerful. You did mix models a little bit when you did the enactment, but that's okay. Didn't mess up anything. But when you had them explain to each other, but mostly you were very, very true to the solution focus. And as you went on, you became more complementary as it went, and that's the role that the solution focus is going to build on. You'd hear Ensu say, "Oh my gosh, how did you think of that? You know, that is so insightful." It's like, you know, it almost sounds cheesy at times, but it was so, the way she did it was so genuine, and you know the clients go, "Oh wow," you know, kind of thing. So just slowing down, adding a little more of that. When Lee Schultz did a faculty demonstration, I was the client and I was the real problem in that family. That was my role to be the problem. And Lee was so good, and he would just, as I say, would really take that solution focus, and he would stop and say, "Wow, I can't believe y'all are talking about that in that way. That is, boy, that's you know, most couples can't do that. And y'all really want help. You're here. You came today. You want to be here. And I'm so impressed that as a young couple, blah, 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 you know, and it just, it's very powerful when you see a solution-focused therapist doing those kind of things to draw them in and build them up and emphasize the change in the solution kind of deal. And that'll come. All of that's going to come, and that's what I put in my grading. All these things you're going to pick up from doing it 300 times in the next year. Because you're going to do at least 300 hours, and the more you do it and the more you record, if you can, record all your sessions. You don't have to. We'll talk about that Sunday. But if you can, record all of them, and if you've got time, play it back. You'll learn from it. You'll learn from watching this. I hate watching myself. I've never watched that session with Matt Pace and Todd, the whole thing going back, because I say, well, why didn't I say this? Why didn't I do that? Kind of thing. So we're all tend to be very self-critical, expect too much, and have that sense of, am I faking? Am I an imposter? Playing therapist here. We all have that, but as much as you can, watch your recordings, listen to it, pay attention to what you did see in the recording that you may not have picked up from in the live session. All of that's going to help you grow in that during that 300 hours. So cool. So thank you.
You fixed
Thank
us.
you.
Thanks so much.
You're all right. I take referrals. That's the downside about solution-focused fast therapy. It's fast.
Oh, was this